Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, going to be breaking down the Week 5 main slate on Draftkings. Going to go position by position, quarterback through tight end. We're going to talk through some plays that I'm liking at each position this week, some guys that do stand out to me. We'll talk about some cash game options, some just core plays, guys that project really well, and then we're going to talk about some GPP plays as well, some guys at lower ownership, maybe some quarterback receiver stacks that I like that I think will be low owned that we can look to target in tournaments. I do want to kind of keep these videos more shorter, more brief. Still give you guys a lot of good information and analysis, but definitely keep them more condensed. I noticed that the main slate breakdowns I was doing before, where I went game by game, those videos weren't getting a ton of traction, and those videos might have been because they were like 40 to 50 minutes long. The goal is to keep these between like 15 to 20 minutes, if maybe even shorter than that. So yeah, we'll talk through each position, kind of give you guys my brief, quick thoughts on each position. Before we do get started though, guys, as always, please hit that like button down below if you do enjoy these DFS videos and if they do help you out a lot. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And also check out PrizePicks. They are the sponsor of this video. You can sign up for PrizePicks using promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And PrizePicks is a player prop based DFS site, so it is very simple, very easy to use. You're just picking more or less on a player's projection. And as you can see, PrizePicks already has a ton of projections posted for Week 5. For the full Sunday slate, they have stuff up for Sunday night, Monday night as well. They have a ton of props, a ton of different categories that you can look through. They also offer a lot of other sports as well outside of just NFL. And right now is a great time as a sports fan. October is always one of the best months for sports. We got the MLB playoffs starting up. Obviously, NFL's in full swing, and NBA starts in like 2 weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun playing on PrizePicks. You can mix and match sports. You can do multi-sport entries. You can make a 5-pick entry with 2 MLB picks, 2 NFL picks, and 1 NBA pick, once NBA season starts. So, yeah, you guys are definitely going to want to be playing on PrizePicks. If you're not playing over there yet, make sure to sign up with promo code NOAH so that way you do get that deposit bonus. And as always, I will be sharing some plays I like for Sunday for the NFL slate. I'll probably have a separate video, a separate PrizePicks video posted. If I don't post it Friday night, I'll definitely have it posted first thing Saturday. Talking through some plays I like for PrizePicks this week. Definitely check out that video if you're already playing on PrizePicks and you want some plays that I'm liking this week. But let's go ahead and talk about the DraftKings slate. Let's go back to quarterback and kind of talk through the quarterback position. It's an interesting week this week. No Patrick Mahomes on the main slate. The Chiefs, I believe, do play on Monday night. No Lamar Jackson either. No Joe Burrow because the Ravens and the Bengals play Sunday night. So we don't have as strong of a quarterback position this week, but clearly, I think the two best plays at the top, if you can fit them, are Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen, against the Steelers defense is one that I'm not, too scared of, especially with a guy like Josh Allen. I mean, he's pretty much matchup proof. The only concern I do have with Josh Allen this week is that the Bills are massively favored in this game. I think they're like 2 touchdown favorites. Little concerned that, if the Bills start running away with this game, if they maybe take their foot off the gas pedal, maybe they don't throw the ball a ton in the second half. But if the Steelers can keep this game close and Josh Allen, continues to go out there and sling the ball around, I mean, he's got massive upside. You can look, the dude's already averaged over 30 DraftKings points per game this season. His worst game was last week when he put up 24 DK points. Like, his floor is just so high, and we know the ceiling is there as well. And I did see a tweet. I can't remember who the tweet was from, but so far this season, in the 11 or 12 offensive touchdowns the Bills have had, all of their offensive touchdowns have come through Josh Allen, whether it be him throwing the ball or running the ball. Like, they don't run the ball a ton. They're going to rely on Josh Allen. They're going to let him go out there and just throw the ball, as much as he wants. Again, can the Steelers keep this game close to where, Josh Allen is still throwing the ball in the fourth quarter? I guess that's to be determined, but I think Josh Allen's a really good play. I think Jalen Hurts is a really good play as well. Jalen Hurts had a down week last week, but, if you look at that Jacksonville game, it was terrible weather. Outside of last week against Jacksonville, I mean, Hurts has been amazing. 30, 37, 24 DK points. I think this game between the Eagles and Cardinals is one that does have plenty of shootout potential. I think the Cardinals can put up some points here, and we could see this game, be pretty high scoring. I do expect this to be a better game environment than the Steelers-Bills game. I think this game is more likely to be close, so I'm kind of leaning Hurts over Allen this week, but man, it's so close between the two. Both guys project so similarly, and they both have massive upside. They also both have a bit, really high floor as well, just because of their rushing ability. I think they're clearly the top 2 quarterback plays this week if you can fit them. But then looking like in the mid-range, I mean, there's not a ton that stands out in the mid-range. Guys like Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, I think are GPP plays. They'll probably come in at low ownership. The one guy in the mid-range that is projecting pretty well that looks like a really good option is Tom Brady. Tom Brady's only $6K. It's a matchup at home against Atlanta, one that's obviously really good. And we saw last week with his weapons back, with Mike Evans healthy, with Chris Godwin healthy, Tom Brady had a big game. Now, yes, the Bucs were trailing for a large majority of that game, so Brady threw the ball 52 times. I don't think Brady's going to throw the ball 52 times again this week, but clearly having Evans and Godwin healthy is good for Brady. It's good for his fantasy upside. And we know Brady's a guy that still offers fantasy upside even at this point in his career. He doesn't really have any rushing ability, but he can throw for 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns any week. And obviously this Atlanta defense is one that we're not scared of. I think the Bucs on this slate, they have the second highest team total behind the Bills. Only the Bills have a higher team total than the Bucs. So it's definitely a good spot for Brady. The $6K price tag, I feel like, is definitely too low for him. If you're not going, like in cash games, if you're not paying up for Allen or Hurts, I think you're just going to play Brady. I think those are like the three guys in cash games that are probably, you're going to consider. But then like value at quarterback this week, it's pretty thin. There's not a ton of value that I'm loving. I mean, Carson Wentz against Tennessee, like I kind of like that matchup, and Wentz is pretty cheap, but Wentz has definitely not been that good lately. But I think in tournaments, he'll be someone that I probably have in my MME player pool. Trevor Lawrence looks like a pretty good play here at 5,600. It's a really good matchup against Houston. This price tag on Lawrence, I think, is definitely too cheap for the matchup. Lawrence has also not been that great this year, but he's also had some tougher matchups. Like he had to face the Eagles last week in that terrible weather. He did have a really good game against the Chargers. I could definitely see this being a game where Lawrence is able to get it done through the air, 250, 260 yards, multiple touchdowns. Lawrence does offer a little bit of rushing upside, not much, but does offer a little bit of rushing upside. The matchup, though, is what makes this play so appealing. I mean, Houston's defense, the Texans are going to be one of the worst defensive teams in the league once again this season. He's a guy that I do have some interest in for value at quarterback. And there's some other like dart throws you could take a shot on. Geno Smith, I expect him to probably come back down to earth in a tougher matchup this week. Teddy Bridgewater against the Jets, I kind of have some interest in. Really good spot there. Mariota against Tampa Bay, like maybe we could take a shot on Mariota. I definitely think Atlanta's going to have a tough time running the ball. I think they're going to have to throw a lot against Tampa Bay. So like Mariota could be viable, but that's really it for quarterback. That's kind of what I'm seeing at this position. So let's go ahead and move on to the running back position. And at running back this week, I mean, you got like CMC, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb at the top. I don't think any of these guys are going to be like standout must plays for me. Normally in cash games, I do like to pay up at running back for a guy like Christian McCaffrey just because he has such a high floor. But we can get some guys for way cheaper that project somewhat closely to McCaffrey. One guy that really stands out to me is Dalvin Cook. Really, really like this matchup for Dalvin Cook. 7,300 I think is too cheap for the spot at home against the Bears. So far this season, in terms of defending the run, the Bears have definitely been a team you can run on. They are allowing the third most rushing yards to opposing running backs, only behind the Texans and the Seahawks. In terms of like rushing touchdowns and given up to running backs, they're about middle of the pack there. They're about middle of the pack in terms of receiving yards, but this Bears defense has definitely struggled to stop the run this season. And we've yet to see like a big game from Dalvin Cook. He's just kind of been mediocre this season. Hasn't really had any great fantasy games. But the volume is still there. 23 touches in week 1, 17 touches in week 3. Last week, he got 22 touches against the Saints. He had that game against the Eagles where he got 10 touches. I think that was definitely an outlier. Most weeks, we can expect Cook to get close to 20 touches, if not more than that. He's usually been a lot better at home as well. I don't have his splits pulled up, but I want to say since he got drafted by the Vikings, he's been way better at home in the dome than he has been on the road. And I think playing at home here is definitely beneficial for Cook. I could see this being a game where the Vikings get a big lead because, this Bears team, they're not that good. They're probably going to be trailing here, the Bears, that is. And we could see Minnesota playing with a lead so that, maybe they're just feeding Cook in the second half. I think this could definitely be one of those games where Cook goes for over 100 yards, multiple touchdowns. And at 7,300, we're not having to pay the premium for him. It's not like he's 8K, 8,500. He's definitely coming in at a discount. So I have a lot of interest in Dalvin Cook this week. In the mid-range, I think a guy like Alvin Kamara looks like a really good play. Kamara obviously has not been healthy this season. He's only played 2 games, but he should be good to go this week. He got a limited practice in on Thursday. I'm making this video on Friday afternoon. We don't have Friday practice reports yet, but I would assume Friday, Kamara will practice and he'll be good to go. And this is a really good matchup. As I just mentioned, the only team allowing more rushing yards than the Bears this season are the Texans and the Seahawks. And in a matchup at home against the Seahawks, this sets up as a really good spot for Kamara. He should be very efficient on the ground against this bad Seahawks defense. The Seahawks have allowed the third most rushing touchdowns this season. In terms of receptions and receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs, they've also been top 10 in that category as well in terms of most yards allowed. So giving up 186 receiving yards to running backs, 24 receptions. I believe both those numbers are 6th most in the league. We know Kamara is going to get it done in the passing game. Looks like Andy Dalton is going to start again this week for the Saints. We don't have confirmation yet, I believe, on who's going to be starting. Last I saw was that Jameis didn't practice on Thursday. Jameis hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but Jameis might not play. And honestly, I think if Jameis doesn't play, that's probably a good thing for Kamara because Andy Dalton is a lot more likely to drop it off to the running backs. He's a lot more likely to target the running backs than Jameis Winston does. Jameis Winston doesn't really throw the ball to his running backs much at all. So this could definitely be a game where Kamara gets like 12, 15 carries, 5, 6, 7 targets. Like we could get a vintage Alvin Kamara game here, and he's only 6,600. Like we're getting a big discount on him. I think Kamara looks like a really good play this week. I'm not too worried about his injury. He seems to be good to go. Some other guys that stand out in the mid-range, like Leonard Fournette, he's just getting great usage in the passing game right now. He ran for -3 yards on Sunday night against the Chiefs and still put up 18 DraftKings points, which is just crazy. I don't know if a running back has ever ran for negative yards and scored 18 DraftKings points, but Leonard Fournette did it on Sunday night. He hasn't been super efficient on the ground this season, but he's been getting the pass game usage. And obviously a matchup against Atlanta is one that I think sets up pretty well for Fournette. So he's someone I'm interested in. If DeAndre Swift does not play again, we're still waiting for an update on him. We could obviously go back to Jamal Williams, who had a huge game last week. Not as good of a matchup this week, but I still think Jamal Williams will be in play if Swift is out. And then like in the 5K range, a guy like Dameon Pierce, pretty good spot against Jacksonville. I'm interested in him for tournaments. If David Montgomery doesn't play this week, we can look to go back to Khalil Herbert. His price tag barely moved. He's still just 5,900 on DraftKings. He should get really good volume once again if Montgomery doesn't play. And then a guy like Damian Harris, 5,600, really good matchup against Detroit. Only thing I worry about with Damian Harris is just that he doesn't get a ton of usage in the passing game. And on DraftKings, I want to play running backs that can catch some passes just because you want those, that point per reception does add up quick. But this should definitely be a spot where Harris is able to be very efficient on the ground. The Lions have been a team that's always struggled against the run so far this season in terms of rushing yards allowed to running backs. The Lions, they are 7th most rushing yards allowed to running backs. I definitely think it's a good spot for Harris. They've allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs this season. So definitely interested in Damian Harris. And then the last guy we'll mention is Jeff Wilson. I think Jeff Wilson's going to be a pretty popular play at running back this week. But he's just too cheap for his role. I think he does stand out as a pretty good play. Not factoring in ownership. He's going to be popular, but like for cash games, I think he's definitely in cash game consideration. He's just getting so much volume right now. He's the clear number 1 running back for the 49ers. They don't really have anyone else behind Wilson that you're scared of taking touches away from him. Saw 18 touches on Monday night against the Rams. He had 15 touches the game before that, 20 touches the game before that. He's basically like an every down running back. He's not getting a ton of usage in the passing game, which is not great, but he's going to get 12, 15 carries. We know this 49ers team wants to run the ball as much as possible. At only 5,500, I think Jeff Wilson is also a pretty good play in this 5K range. Running back's a tough position to just list off a few plays. Obviously, there's so many options, but I tried to narrow it down the best I could, kind of give you guys the plays that I'm the most interested in this week. Let's move on to wide receiver now, and wide receiver is another position where it's really tough to just narrow it down to like 3, 4, 5 guys. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of plays that you could go to here. If you're in tournaments, you're always going to be looking to stack up your quarterbacks with their wide receivers. So, but for looking for cash games and more so like optimal plays this week, paying up at receiver, I think, is going to be tough. There's not a ton of standout plays at receiver, at least, for cash games. If you are going to pay up, Cooper Kupp's got to be like the best option. He just has the highest floor out of any receiver. Arguably, he definitely has the highest ceiling as well. I think this will be a week where like a guy like Justin Jefferson comes in at fairly low ownership. So, you can always target Justin Jefferson when he's low owned. Tyreek Hill's kind of banged up right now. He was limited in practice on Thursday. We'll have to keep an eye on his status. Obviously, if Tyreek Hill were to sit, that would open up a lot of opportunity for Jalen Waddle, who at 6,700 already looks like a pretty good option. But just talking about in the upper 7K, 6K range, the guys that really stand out to me, A.J. Brown in this matchup against the Cardinals. I don't know if A.J. Brown's someone I'd be playing in cash games, but for tournaments, I definitely like stacking him up with Jalen Hurts and then maybe running it back with like a Zach Ertz or a Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has been crushing lately, been getting great volume. His price tag is way up there though now, like 7,200 on DraftKings. I don't think anyone's going to play Hollywood Brown at this salary. So like for tournaments, I definitely like a Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown stack, run it back with Hollywood Brown. That's something that should come in with low ownership, and it's going to be I think it is a game that does have some shootout potential. So that could definitely be a stack that winds up paying off for you. But like cash games, you're probably not going to be able to pay up at receiver. You're going to have to look more towards the mid range. And there's some guys in this mid-range that definitely stand out for cash games. So first off, Chris Godwin at 5,900 is just, in my opinion, too cheap. Godwin seems to be fully healthy now. He obviously played the full game on Sunday night against Kansas City. Got 10 targets, 7 catches, 59 yards. I mean, 5,900, we never saw Godwin at this price tag last season. At least I don't think we did. Now, obviously, he hasn't performed at the same level that he did as he did last season, but he's just not been healthy. Now he's played a full game last week. He's had all week to prepare for this one to get to heal. Got a limited practice on Thursday. Again, we don't have Friday practice reports yet, but I'd assume Godwin will at least practice in limited capacity Friday, if not get a full practice in on Friday. And 5,900, again, this price tag for Godwin does seem too cheap. He's going to be the number 1, number 2 option on this Bucs team. He's going to play almost every snap. It's a really good matchup against a bad Atlanta defense. And again, we talked about how Tom Brady projects as a really good play this week. In cash games, I normally don't quarterback wide receiver stack, but I definitely think in cash you could stack up Tom Brady with Chris Godwin because I think both guys project really well at their salaries. So Godwin is someone that I like a lot in cash this week, and obviously in tournaments you could play him as well. Drake London, especially now that Kyle Pitts has been ruled out, I think Drake London's going to have a really big role. He's already been leading the Falcons in target share this season, and now you're taking away the number 2 option in Kyle Pitts. So we could see a 10, 11, 12 target game for Drake London here. As I mentioned earlier, Tampa Bay has always been a very tough team to run on, so I don't think this is going to be a spot where Atlanta has much success running the ball. They're already going to be missing Cordell Patterson, so they're going to be using like Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. They might try and run the ball against this Tampa Bay defense. I just don't know if they're going to have much success. So I could see this being a game where Mariota is forced to throw the ball more. I definitely think Atlanta is going to be playing from behind in this one. And when Mariota's thrown the ball, he's been looking for Drake London. Drake London has been his number 1 option this season. 5,900 and just volume alone, I think is going to make Drake London a pretty solid play at the salary. Matchup against Tampa Bay, I think is fine. Tampa Bay, they've been a team you can beat more through the air than through the ground. And obviously Kyle Pitts being out, I think is even better for Drake London. Just helps to boost his target share. So he's another guy that I'm interested in that mid range. Assuming Michael Thomas doesn't play, I think we're going to see a lot of ownership go to Chris Olave. But Chris Olave's been great this year. He's been getting really good targets. He's been used a ton as a deep threat. Like his air yards every week, he's got like a ton of air yards just because they keep targeting him deep down the field. I think Jameis Winston being in at quarterback is probably better for Olave than Dalton, but even with Dalton at quarterback last week in that London game, I mean, Olave still had a solid game, 4 catches, 67 yards and a touchdown, saw 7 targets. He's a guy that offers big play upside. He's been getting consistent volume, and if Michael Thomas were to sit again, which it seems like he's not going to play, he did not practice on Thursday, we're going to see Chris Olave have a big role once again. So, he's another guy in this mid-range that I'm interested in. Curtis Samuel, I kind of like in tournaments. I don't know if I'd play him in cash games, but for tournaments, I definitely have interest in a guy like Curtis Samuel, especially since Jahan Dotson's out this week. Tyler Lockett at 5,600, he just continues to get really good volume. We're probably going to see Marshawn Lattimore shadow DK Metcalf, so Lockett should be able to avoid that matchup, and he should be able to see some targets here. He's been kind of the number 1 option for Geno Smith. It's always hard picking between Lockett and Metcalf. It seems like whichever one I play, I'm just wrong, and the other one goes off. Last week I played Lockett, and Metcalf had the huge game. If I play Lockett again this week, Metcalf will probably go off again, but I definitely think the matchup is better for Lockett. His price tag's also cheaper than Metcalf. On Draftkings, Metcalf is I think he's 6'8", whereas Lockett's 5,600. 5,600 for Lockett's definitely too cheap. So he's another guy in cash games. I think for cash games at wide receiver, you're going to be living in this 5K range. And there's some other guys down here in tournaments that are in play, like Robert Woods, with Treylon Burks doubtful. I don't love targeting this Tennessee passing game, but Robert Woods is someone that's viable at 5,200. Some dart throws down here. There's not a ton of cheap value at wide receiver. I do want to mention Rondale Moore. He made his return last week. He wasn't too effective, just 5 targets, 3 catches for 11 yards. But obviously, in this Arizona offense with Kyler Murray at quarterback, we can assume Rondale Moore is going to have a pretty good role, and this Arizona team is going to put up some points most weeks. I know the matchup's a little bit tougher against a good Eagles defense, but as basically the number 2, number 3 option behind Hollywood Brown, behind Zach Ertz, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Rondale Moore. And I want to see his snap share last week. So he played on, He played on, 86% of the snaps in his first game back from injury. So Rondale Moore seems to be fully healthy. He wasn't really limited at all last week. So if you're taking a shot on a cheap receiver, like someone, 5K and below, Rondale Moore is someone I'm interested in. Even a guy like Zay Jones, I don't mind. But that's really it for wide receiver. Let's go ahead and mention tight end real quick before we end the video. So tight end's a very interesting position. No Travis Kelce, no Mark Andrews, no Darren Waller. Our most expensive tight end is George Kittle, and George Kittle is only $5,200. So, I mean, obviously tight end's going to be a position where you can save some salary this week. George Kittle, he's not been great for fantasy. This season, he's not really done much. Last season, he didn't really do much. But we know George Kittle always offers big-time upside. We know he's going to be a guy that consistently sees, 5-6 targets a week. There's going to be a game at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. It could be this week. It could be week 14 or something. But there's going to be a game where George Kittle goes for over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. I don't know when that game's going to happen, but we know that upside is always on the table for Kittle, and especially on a slate like this with so few tight end options, with no really good pay-up options. I'm fine paying up for George Kittle this week. I think he will come in at fairly low ownership. I think he's just got the biggest ceiling out of probably anyone on this slate. Like if any tight end on this slate puts up 30, it's probably going to be George Kittle if I had to guess. T.J. Hockenson obviously had that huge game last week. He was massive chalk with Amon-Ra St. Brown out. It does seem like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to play this week though. I believe he did practice on Friday. So if Amon-Ra is back, I'm not super interested in Hockenson. His price tag did go up a little bit. The matchup's not nearly as good against New England. But if Amon-Ra remains out, then yeah, Hawkinson's going to be a pretty good option that you can go to. Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, like both these tight ends in this Philly-Arizona game, I like quite a bit. Ertz has just had such a good role this year with the Cardinals. He's been a consistent red zone target, getting good volume, playing on almost every snap. And then same with Goddard. I mean, Goddard, his volume hasn't been great, but he's playing every single snap. And we know this Arizona team is one you can beat with tight ends. So far this season, Arizona has done really bad defending the tight end position. They've given up the second most receiving yards, second most receptions, and second most fantasy points to tight ends. Only the Seahawks have been worse against the tight end position. So I think it's a really good matchup for Goddard. He's definitely someone I'm interested in. But the one guy that really stands out at tight end this week that I think will be very popular, and right now he's actually projected to be the highest owned player on the slate, that's Tyler Higbee. 4,300 for Tyler Higbee. I mean, DraftKings just messed up here. I think it was because Higbee and the Rams played on Monday night, so DraftKings wasn't really able to adjust Higbee's price. But man, he's just seen so much good volume this week or this year. He's averaging, I believe, 9.5 targets per game. He's got the second highest target share on the Rams behind Cooper Kupp. And while Cooper Kupp is going to see a ton of volume, Tyler Higbee's been the number 2 option for Matthew Stafford, and he's been the guy that Stafford has looked to whenever Cooper Kupp is not open. 14 targets on Monday night, 10 catches for 73 yards. He did have that 4-target game against Arizona, but I think we can continue to see, we're going to continue to see 6, 7, 8 targets a week for Tyler Higbee, if not more than that. Dallas's defense is really good, but the volume for Higbee is just too good to pass up at 4,300. I think in cash games, if you're not playing Tyler Higbee in cash games, I think you're making a mistake. In tournaments, I do expect him to be very popular, but he will still be in my tournament player pool. I think he's just the best value play at tight end. Points per dollar wise, in terms of raw projection, Higbee looks like a strong option at 4,300. And then there's some other guys in GPPs that I'll have in my player pool, like Pat Freiermuth. He's been just getting really good volume, and I think this will definitely be a game where the Steelers are trailing. So like Freiermuth in tournaments I'm interested in, and Njoku in tournaments I'm interested in. But that's probably it for the tight end position. I think we kind of talked about most of the plays I'm interested in there, and we talked about pretty much everything that I'm interested in at each position. Now, again, guys, I know that for these videos, it's really hard to go through each position and just list off every play. I don't want to do that. I want to give you guys the players that I'm the most interested in, that I expect to be in my lineups. Talking through cash games and talking through tournaments as well. But I hope you guys do enjoy these DFS videos. I'm trying to change it up a little bit, make them a little bit more enjoyable to watch, make them shorter as well. I think this video is going to be somewhat short. I don't know exactly how long we've been recording for, but I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet, and also check out PrizePicks. Make sure to sign up for PrizePicks, guys. Use promo code NOAH when you do sign up. Get your first deposit matched up to $100. And if you want to know some plays that I like for PrizePicks this week, as always, check out my PrizePicks video that I will probably post either Friday night or Saturday. I'll have some plays I'll share some plays that I like for PrizePicks this week. And if you do enjoy all the content that I provide on YouTube and you want to get more content from me, I do have additional stuff that I post on Patreon. More DFS content's provided over there, core plays, player pool. Also, I do give out additional PrizePicks plays that I'm on each week. That's also provided on Patreon. We also have a Discord chat that's available for Patreon members. So a lot of stuff goes up on Patreon too. If you want to check that out, it's always linked down below in the description. But best of luck this week, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you did enjoy. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.